In this one, I'm basically in a situation where I kept trying to put duct tape on a problem that needs me to go in and fix it at its core. I bought this house maybe 4 years ago, and I've been having constant issues with it, with water intrusion, like to the point where if you looked in the crawl space, you could see standing water. I mean, there were like rats on rafts inside of the floors. And finally, it got to the point where you can see drywall started to crack. So you know when something like that happens that the problems are a little bit deeper. Drywall shouldn't start cracking like that. It's a definite sign that something is sinking in the foundation. So there's the foundation on the exterior of the property, and then there's also going to be foundation within the interior. These are piers that hold up the wood that you stand on. When it's in the middle of the house like that, it's definitely the piers in the middle of the crawl space that are starting to sink, which makes sense because there's standing water in there. However, the problem's even gotten worse, that the brick on the exterior of the building started to crack, which tells me that not only are the piers starting to sink, but so is the exterior of the building. So now I have a serious structural issue, and there's no duct taping the problem anymore. Some of the ways that I tried to duct tape it are, one, I tried to bring dirt into the exterior of the property so that way when water came in, it couldn't get to the property. It would kind of spread off and throughout the yard. The problem is that no matter what I do, this is the low point of the neighborhood, so all the water comes down here. There's struggles with the city stormwater as well that they're working on, but I can't really wait any longer because, as you can see with the cracking, the house is getting damaged. When I think of structural problems with a house, there's really three things that I think about. Number one, is it bleeding? That means, is the problem getting worse every single day? Two, is it structurally safe? Whatever damage has been done, is it going to cause a problem? And three, cosmetic. Does it look ugly? With this one, all three boxes are checked. Is it bleeding? Absolutely. Water is coming and hitting this house and I can't stop it. So that's what we're here to do today, is figure out where the bleeding's coming from and make a plan to stop it. Obviously, the plan's already in action. That's what all this is. You can see how the floor should be absolutely level, but instead it's dipping right here. And that's because things are sinking. It also is because of all the moisture. The plywood, the subfloor, is actually getting saturated and it's just starting to fail. You know, the plywood should not be saturated like that. This is a pier, and this is sitting on some sort of concrete pad, and then these blocks get built up from the concrete pad, and they are what hold up the floor structure. So this is a beam right here that is holding up the floor joists. And what happens when water saturates all of this, it starts to sink. When this sinks, everything sinks, and that's what allows the walls to start cracking. And that's what's happened here. And then, so another issue that comes from all of this is actual wood rot. Now, that's not necessarily from the water that's coming into the crawl space. It's somewhat from the water that's coming into the crawl space, but more from the water being in the air. That's how the bottom of the subfloor gets saturated like that. But a bigger problem yet is in the wall. So you can see all the damage that has been done from water inside of the wall. That's not from the water coming up. That's from water getting in through this brick. So next thing that we need to do is figure out how water is getting into the brick and stop it, because you can see that it's damaging the exterior sheathing here, i.e. it's not supposed to look like that. It sucks to have to do this, but in a job like this, you really just aren't going to be able to work from bottom side, meaning work in the crawl space. So I had to tear up the floors so I could go ahead and access it to get the stuff in here and fix what needs fixed, which, you know, that's going back to the duct tape on a problem. You know, we did come in here and we put in these new floors and such, thinking that we could mitigate the problem from bottom side and that we could bring in dirt. And so we've done a partial renovation already that basically we have to backtrack on. Another issue, now that I think about it, with the whole duct taping of the problem, this is the house, or one of the houses, that had some serious plumbing issues, and we actually had, like, the plumbing was backed up and somebody opened up the clean out. One of the tenants opened up the clean out, so basically like all the sewage was coming into the yard. And at one time I thought that was what was causing the saturated ground, which it was, but we solved that problem. But we've had to put a lot of duct tape on the plumbing problems as well, because ultimately what we needed to do is come in here and redo the plumbing. And so this is going to give us the opportunity to come in here and run new sewer lines all the way to the city. to the city tap, and so we can once and for all solve those problems. I mean, it sucks to have to do that, but once you have everything exposed like this, it makes a lot more sense. It's pretty clear to me that the water issue from the outside, inside of the wall, like we showed on the inside, is not what I thought it was. What it really is this air conditioning unit that's going through the wall. You know, these have to condensate. They leak water down the sides, and what you do is you put a condensate drain in so the water can get away from the house. Hasn't been done here, so this water has just been finding its way in. Water always finds its way in if you let it. Yeah, so this is where we brought water in. You can see the tire tracks. This was last year, so grass has already grown up. But once again, it's not the top water that's getting in. We have stopped the water that's going on the ground and coming in. The problem is it saturates the ground, and when it saturates the ground, the water table comes up. So you can see that the foundation is sinking right here. Because of this crack in the brick is a telltale sign. Now, that is a combination of the issue of the water coming in, and this is also the clean out that a tenant opened, and basically for months the sewage was coming into the backyard, and so it was sitting right here was the main point, and it definitely saturated the ground enough to do some serious damage. So we'll have to come in and repair this foundation. But, you know, in talking about the 3 items of structural, is it bleeding, is it structurally safe, and is it cosmetic? Well, on a rental like this in the back, I don't really care about the cosmetic. I do care that has the bleeding been stopped. So obviously that's what we're doing, is trying to stop the bleeding. And 2, is it structurally safe? Well, there's nothing about this that is structurally unsafe at this point. And we've had to engage a structural engineer to formally tell us that, but we're good to go on the structurally safe part. So here you can see this is from the sump pump. So, you know, a sump pump, what you do in the crawl space is you dig a pit, and then you're going to put a pump in there, so we're directing all the water into the pit, and then the sump pump pumps the water out. Now this is a temporary fix right now. Ultimately, we'll have hard pipes that go in the ground and they shoot the water out the back, which this waterway back here is a safe spot for us to put the water. And once again, in a situation like this, we've actually had to engage a engineer who deals with the water, the water flow, the water stuff, whatever. It's been a big deal, you know. Now there's minor issues like the fact that this gutter is obviously full of stuff and it has no drainage right now. The downspout is, you know, basically water is going right here, and you can see how it dips right there because the water just sits here and then it starts to eat away the ground. So these need to get away from the house, but that in itself is not going to solve the problem. But all the downspouts need to be extended, and truly that goes for every house that you have. You need to get water away from the house, otherwise it's going to make pools like that, and pools saturate, and ultimately they're going to make your foundation fail. And a very clear sign that your gutters are going to need work and they're not functioning correctly is when trees start growing from them.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
Investing in real estate is definitely not for the faint of heart. Sometimes you get a great deal, and sometimes you get something like this, and you just have to deal with it. There are ways to fix these problems, and that's the thing that I love about real estate, is you do have control. You can solve the worst of the problems. It just costs some money and some problem-solving ability.